submitted.
You're live.
Hey, welcome back, folks. This is House Corrections and Institutions Committee. It is Tuesday, February 24th. We're shifting gears. We're now going to be talking on H559, going over some new language with our Hillary, with our legal staff to talk about the legal counsel pilot project. And I'm also going to hand out, this came from the Attorney General's office, an email that was sent to many of us, and I made copies of it for the committee. In terms of Tate, can you forward that email to Sean? If you have that posted on our webpage. This is other councils or boards in the state that have legal, that contract out for legal representation, and the cost and what they provide is to give you folks a basis. What we've talked about right now is 25,000. There was more. They're coming. They're coming. Good enough. What we spoke about was there's 25,000 in the FY26 budget that would be available for legal costs, go out to contract. There is nothing in the FY27. They did go out for an RFP with the 25,000, and there were no bids. But that 25,000 is our understanding that that is still available in the FY26 budget. So the thinking is that 25,000 could be used for another round of going out to see if we can find legal counsel to carry out the language that's highlighted in 559. Okay, so here I'm turning it over to you.
All right, Hillary Chutter Ames for the Office of Legislative Counsel. We have draft 2.1 of a strike-all amendment to H559. Quickly before the new language at the end, on page 2, line 5, this was a suggestion from the committee several meetings ago on this bill, but instead of saying prior to appointing a member, the governor shall consult with the parole board director and chair. The suggestion was upon notification of a vacancy, the governor shall consult with the parole board director and the chair, such that ideally it is after a vacancy and not after someone has already made a decision that the governor is consulting. So that's just one small change before the legal counsel and budgeting piece that the chair previewed. Moving on to, this is page 4. New section 4 in session law, creating a parole board legal counsel pilot project. So this is line 7, subsection A, creates the pilot project to provide external legal support for annual training to the board on topics related to due process and parole violations, and 2, legal advice to the board as needed related to board hearings. This is my understanding from discussion the committee had the last time it took up this bill with witnesses, that these were the anticipated subjects of the support. But of course, easy to modify this if this does not reflect the intent when the committee last discussed this. Subsection B, the Office of the Attorney General shall coordinate with the board and DOC to identify and contract with external legal support. This was part of what I understand to be the party's proposal about how this would be handled. Subsection C, as part of the fiscal year 2028 budget development process, AHS and DOC shall coordinate with the parole board director to evaluate the pilot project and determine resources needed for board external legal support for fiscal year 2028. It sounds like there is also going to be language about submitting a proposed budget to the Department of Corrections, separate and apart from the legal counsel pilot project funding. But both of these would involve some requirements around the budget development process for fiscal year 2028. On line 19, subsection D, this is the report back that the committee was looking for. I picked November 1st, 2026 as a time. Easy to fix that date if the committee thinks that a later or earlier report back makes more sense. But as written, on or before November 1st, 2026, the parole board director shall submit a written report to the House Committee on Corrections and Institutions detailing the operation of the pilot project. Any questions about section 4 before we turn to section 5?
No, go first.
Did you have a question, Will?
Yeah, just, well, about the November 1st, I mean, that's so minor in the grand scheme of things, but do you think that's appropriate to do that?
Yeah, I mean, we have that. Sometimes it's December 15th, but
I don't mind it
depends on
being,
the date.
I don't mind it being earlier, that way it's not all cluttered with all the other reports that happen.
But it would be, remember, we have a new biennium.
That's.
So it's talking about for the new biennium. So you might want it December 15th, doesn't matter. For that, as long as it's there before the new biennium. So we talked about going out to contract for legal advice for training of the parole board members that would be related to their due process in terms of how you carry out the statute, how you deal with the world of someone who's incarcerated and coming before them, asking to be paroled, to give legal backup for that process, but also when there's violations of parole, to help the board work through that in a legal manner as well. So that's what number 1 deals with. And then number 2 is any other legal advice that the board might need related to board hearings. Now, would that be number 2, would that be on top of the annual training? So they would be like on call? Is that what number 2 is?
Correct. Both of these things were discussed. Legal advice as needed does not necessarily require that someone is available at all times at hearings. But the idea would be if a question arises at a hearing, asking the external legal counsel about that question would be within the realm of what they were hired to do.
Questions from the committee on this? Troy?
I'm just wondering if line 9 is too restrictive. I can envision personally, potentially other training topics beyond due process and parole violations. And does this restrict us too much? Like maybe I would turn to Mary Jane for her thoughts on that.
Jane, you want to identify yourself for the record?
Mary Jane Ainsworth, Director of the Parole Board. I think our 2 main topics are these to start off with, but definitely could look at other topics as well. Same thing with the legal advice. I really suggest leaving the legal advice in there because there could be legal advice around other aspects of parole. Not just around the due process and the violation needs, because we do have early discharge statutes. We have no longer eligible for parole statutes, other statutes that we would need to look at potentially at times from a legal aspect.
One option, if the committee wants to make the language a little bit more expansive on training, is to say something like annual training to the board, comma, including on topics related to due process and parole violations, which lets it be a little broader, but still mentions that that's the kind of.
Right down.
Yep.
Okay. Can you read that again, Hillary?
Yes, this would be page 4, line 9, annual training to the board, comma, including on topics related to due process and parole violations.
Could you say included but not limited to?
Yes, I think what I understand from our kind of statutory guidelines is that when we say included, we always mean including but not limited to. But I'll double check that just to make sure.
Does this give 1 and 2 enough information to go out with an RFP?
For another
I
witness.
believe so, and I'm looking at time, I believe so, we've already started that, we started that process already, I started to schedule a meeting and we've already started, the Attorney General's office has already got a draft.
So who would be issuing the RFP? Would it be the parole board or the AG's office or both? Who would, Todd, you want to go ahead?
Sure, Todd Delos, Assistant Attorney General. So there are a couple little pieces here, but essentially, it's a simplified bid project proposal, so it doesn't actually fall under like a full RFP under Bullet 3.5. And therefore, we would send it out to the folks who have done this work in the past, and the examples provided to the committee are a few of the contracts that result. I would say what we are likely to do, I haven't actually reviewed the draft because it's not really my lane, but we would be pulling language from existing contracts with other legal service providers for other simpler boards and essentially just saying, here's the scope of work. It's pretty broad, and then we narrow in as the board needed from there.
So it'd be the AGs that would go out,
Yeah, I
the
don't think,
RFP, for the
I can double
RFP?
check on that, Chair. I don't know as we necessarily run the full simplified bid project, but not to get too far in the weeds, though it is relevant to the draft in front of you. Bulletin 17.10 in AOA. I don't know how much you all deal with administrative bulletins. No one's
Not
really.
very many, but we're familiar with 3.5
3.5, so
to a certain
17
extent.
Yeah, so 1710 is sort of layered on top of that, and it requires the AG to sign off any contract for external legal services. So I would say, and Legislative Council hasn't walked through it quite yet, but section 4B, which is lines 12 through 14, is redundant of the existing requirement for the AGO to work on that. So I might suggest that it is unnecessary in session law, and we would work with the client, in this case, the Parole Board, DOC, AHS, depending on where the money's coming from to make that process happen. I just am not certain sort of who issues it, but we would facilitate putting that information out, which is part of the reason we think it'll be more successful than the last RFP.
I think it'd be, though, I know for, you're seeing B and C is redundant because that would be the process you're doing. I think for us as legislators to know when we hear the report back at the end of the year, we need to know what the structure of it.
Totally understood. I think it's really for us, just B is redundant of the existing administrative law. That's all I want to say.
Questions? We're okay with 1 and 2. And B, any questions on B for folks? Anything on C? So who would determine what resources would be needed? Would it be the Agency of Human Services and DOC?
It's all three parties in consultation. But for purposes of the written report on November 1st, 2026, it is the parole board director that would submit the written report detailing the operation of the pilot project, which could also mention the resources needed. But as written, I think it's the three entities would consult and defer to other witnesses if it's appropriate to write it differently or if there's another way to structure that given how the budget development process works, which I know very little bit about now, hope to learn more in the future, but cannot speak to in great detail.
So that would almost tie in with the new thinking about the parole board budget needs and submitting that for FY 28. This would be part of that submission.
I think there would be overlap exactly with the new envision.
Wouldn't be in conflict.
Not in conflict, because this just says coordinate, talk about it, but the new provision, as I understand it, envisions the parole board being able to submit a proposed budget such that the parole board will be able to document what they are requesting in terms of budgetary needs.
Or legal support going forward
Mhm.
in FY 28.
Yeah, so as I understand it, the new section to be added would be a proposed budget generally for the parole board, which would include presumably specific monies for legal support, external legal support.
Do you have your hand up, Mary Jane? No, okay.
And I will keep an eye on this as I'm drafting to make sure that those sections stay complementary instead of.
People follow that?
Yes.
Okay, and then would submit to us. Yeah, I would leave it our committee at this point. I don't know who in the Senate, if this ever passed the Senate. I don't know what committee would be working on it in the Senate. I would assume it'd be Senate institutions. But I don't want to put that in yet, because I just don't know where it would go over there. So is November 1st a good date, or should it be December 15th?
My idea with November, which may not matter much, was just trying to anticipate some budget conversations. But obviously the committee is not meeting between November and December, so perhaps that does not make a difference.
No. I just don't care.
Um,
How about December 1st?
I'm fine with both of these.
Yeah.
We usually do it.
Yep.
Really?
I've seen when I looked at different statutes on pilot projects and report backs, there were some that were November 1st and then some certainly December 15th. I think one advantage if you anticipate, perhaps not here, but sometimes if you anticipate wanting to draft a bill coming out of one of these reports, having it earlier makes the Office of Legislative Counsel happier because we have more time to work on your bill.
I think November 1st makes more sense because also it ties in more with C.
Well, no, November 15th after the election. So the folks.
New folks.
That could be a real game changer for the general.
My only concern with November 1st is just how much data that we would have at that point for the pilot project, just understanding that I'm not sure how long the contract process will be. We just may not have a lot of data. So just want the committee to understand the earlier the report, it might have less information in it.
What about November 15th? Because then it is after the election.
I would just kind of consider who would be
Who will be drafting bills? 15th, November 15th?
Yes,
That's a good one.
that works.
Okay. Anything else on these? Here we go. Kicks it into Appropriations Committee.
And here we have a new section 5. I worked with JFO on this language since they are the ones who know how to say this. But section 5 is the Department of Corrections fiscal year 2026 carry forward. And this is a way of saying what I understood the proposal to be, which is that the $55,000 that DOC has set aside for parole board extra support in the 2026 budget shall carry forward into fiscal year 2027. And this is lines 5 through 6 on page 5 for the purpose of hiring external legal counsel pursuant to section 4 of this.
So is that dealing with FY, when it says in 2025, acts and resolve number 27, that is dealing with the current FY 26 budget.
That's my understanding, yes.
The money is there in the current budget, 26. It's 25,000 there for legal services. In the FY 27, that 25,000 was zeroed out. So in the current 27 budget that's being looked at downstairs in DOC budget for the parole board, 25,000 was zeroed out for legal services.
Was that an additional 25? No,
That was just 25. James.
So my question for over here, I think, or maybe to one of those guys. So the 25 you know, I don't think anybody has a problem with 25, but we thought that 25 wasn't enough. So is there more money somewhere or?
We'll find it.
Okay.
We can find it.
Okay.
We can find it, trust me. So if you go to this, it's came from the budget of DOC. It says parole board, third-party legal counsel not able to secure private counsel allocations since FY 24 BAA item. They zeroed out to 25. So there's 25 in FY 26 that we're saying could be used, should be used for this legal counsel.
Yeah, but I don't, if they didn't have any takers during this year, they certainly probably aren't going to the 25,000 again.
That then leads to this conversation, what I just sent out, which then leads to what we can recommend to our House Appropriations.
And that first one is just essentially spot on to what we're looking for. But that was 22, 24. Yeah. That was 20.
But how much time for the Criminal Justice Training Council? Todd is the one that put this together, the AG's office. How much time for the Criminal Justice Training Council is given compared to what's given for liquor and lottery and the Pension Investment Commission? Do you know at all?
So I would just be doing math, and public math is not
It's not good.
the greatest thing, but,
You have to state your name, please.
certainly, thank you, Rep. Marcy, Todd Davis from the AG's office for the record. I don't believe one of the contracts, and I can't recall which one, may have had an estimated hours per week. As a suggested amount, 5 to 10 hours a week, I think is what it was. That may have been the DLL board. But I don't think any of them have a maximum hours. But that's why I put the dollars per hour in there, the hourly rate for those particular contracts. And that would be, the only math I would do is just divide 120, thank you. Rep. Hedrick has done some public math, or maybe it's math that he's not showing me, but about 108 hours for CJTC and about 500 hours.
You check on
About what?
And about 500 for Department of Liquor and Lotteries. And again, those are both 2-year contracts.
So that's over the 2 years.
That's the total values over the 2 years, and both of those contracts, I believe, have renewable clauses in them. I didn't dig in to see if they've been renewed and whether there are amendments. I wanted to just get you the information in two sort of smaller boards. I put the VPIC, the Pension Investment Committee, in there just to demonstrate you can go deeper. You can have a much more sophisticated level of legal research involved. I don't think that's what the proposal is asking for, and I would turn to General Counsel Fisher, but I don't think that's what they need either.
So do you know how often the Criminal Justice Training Council meets?
I don't know how often they meet, but by way of example, those are the folks that when there's a question about the certification of law enforcement officer for whatever reason, or the request to decertify a law enforcement officer based on the behavior, though that is the group that has those adversarial hearings. So there is it's part of the reason I included them is there's an adversarial due process nature to that proceeding as well. So I don't think it's as regular as the
It's not
parole
as regular as the parole board.
but I would also just say, I think they are. The work is maybe more specific to each case as opposed to the parole board, where my sense is that with training, you get sort of categories of cases.
And the Liquor and Lottery Board, how often do they meet?
I think they meet more regularly, whether it's monthly or bi-weekly, and they're doing hearings on licenses, license revocations.
And my gut tells me, I may be off, but my gut tells me 25,000 isn't gonna get somebody to even bid on this.
No.
I would say you go 50.
So I would get
That's why I said last
75. I
week, we
think,
won't
would be-
even look at it.
I hear 100.
No, I'm not going down 100.
Nah, I think 100 somebody definitely bid on it, but I mean, I think anything less than
I think I
75.
used the junk.
We're trying to do
Really
25,000 annually. We're
Well,
not
this
doing-
would be for the pilot project. It's not annual at this point. If you go back to the language in the bill, it is C, which would be evaluate the pilot project and determine resources needed for the board external legal support for FY 28. So it would be for 1 year to get someone to start doing this. So I don't think 25,000 is gonna get you anybody.
No, I
I think my term last week was junk change. I don't usually use that word, those words.
Just do 75, the tropes will cut it to 50 anyways.
If we find the money. Brian, and then,
Just in the spirit of made up math, I was wondering if we shouldn't ask Mary Jane or Lori how much council might be used, like in a week or a month or a year.
You're saying like 20 hours a week. Realize.
well, it's for two purposes,
Yes.
training and then on call is needed for,
I'm hoping to encompass both of those, yeah, in the question.
We would probably defer a little bit to Lori Fisher, who was our counsel. However, I think it varies depending if this is, I think for the pilot project, being that we're just looking at the training and the legal advice, it'd be a lower number than if we started to include potential for litigation, which I believe that the assistant attorney generals will still be covering the litigation during this pilot project until we have an accurate number of hours, so we can give a more correct price to the community. So we wanted to focus solely on these smaller pieces. I will say I reach out maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks to get some legal advice. How much research is done around that, I'm not sure because I'm not doing the research, but I don't have my numbers with me from the last time we tried to scope this out.
But I guess just from the first example on the sheet that we all got, the Criminal Justice Training Council, that averages out to about an hour a week. I mean, that sounds light. Does that feel light?
On my end, an hour a week,
not if you're doing training.
Right.
right? And also just to let the folks know, one of our board members is on the training council as well. And she said they meet at least once a month, if that helps answer that question as well.
And you meet
We meet
3
10,
times a week.
we meet approximately 9 to 10 times a month for hearings. And then, so it's 3 times a week, the first 3 weeks of the month, then possibly an overflow day the last week, and then a board meeting the last week of the month as well.
So you're basically meeting every week.
Every week,
for a
yes.
few days, yeah, it's not.
Whether or not an attorney needs to be involved in that, probably not. Especially the last week of the month, the attorney would most likely be involved for part of that in case the board during their staff meeting had any legal questions to pose to that attorney. And that can range from an hour to 2 to 3 hours, depending on the conversations.
I think too, we need to weigh the weight of those decisions. Criminal Justice Training Council versus the parole board. Because the council, their real role is to classify or basically declassify a law enforcement officer. The parole board is dealing with someone's liberty and public safety. And there could be a decision made by the parole board to release someone on parole, and then a tragedy happens, and who gets the blame? Citizens who are sitting on the parole board that have very little legal backup. So I just want to put that on the table for people to weigh. Well, do you have anything?
I know I had something, but now we got round out with that.
So is 25,000 gonna get us what we want?
No. No way.
Would 50,000 work? Will we find 25,000 in a budget?
Almost like what Connor said, I'd go to 75.
I'd go to
because
75 because they're
then
gonna cut
they
it.
Cut it.
If we find the money, it might be a little different.
Repo's working on it.
Yeah, but that's different money. Well,
None of it's cash.
there's money moving, pretrial supervision, folks. There's money moving. Right? We have 2 open positions in the license plate shop. Just putting that on the table. Right?
So regarding the shop, did they figure out what's actually needed? It's not the
Well,
500 or
we're
whatever.
not sure going forward if it's needed or not, kind of depending what happens with going to one plate or not, or.
Oh, we
Anyway,
actually did.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. For the record, Haley Summer, Director of Communications with DOC. To my understanding, Senate Transportation has discarded the idea of moving to one plate.
good.
So at the moment, DOC's operations will continue with 2. We can speak to the budgeting piece on Thursday around the positions. As I know, we're scheduled for follow-up budget testimonies. But to my understanding, the issue was an accounting one, as the state had transitioned to a new accounting issues. And so those 2 positions that are vacant, we do not plan on them being filled, but they were essentially brought from one accounting software to another as like a technical error. So we can remedy that on Thursday. So I'm not sure, I don't believe that that money is actually available for other use as those positions were swept.
But we will see. Look into that. I think to find 50,000, I think we could find 50,000 in a $220 million budget.
50 by 75.
We got 25 already,
Right here, right, to here,
75.
75 total, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's 50 more.
Yeah.
right.
I think we could find that somehow. And then if they find that they could get someone for less, then that's carry forward into the next budget year. Like the reallocations.
220, 240.
Does that make sense to folks?
Yeah.
If I was offered a proposal for 75, I'd make sure that I'm providing $75,000 worth of sales. So I don't think we're gonna get a lower bid. Depends on what you ask for, right? I'm okay with 75.
I mean, that would be for us to find that money. Can't go in to approach and say we want more money. It'd be up to us to find that money. Would be fair to our colleagues. For that. That's the direction we want to go. We have to find the money. Okay,
But as you alluded to the last set of testimony, because where the money likely exists already.
we think.
Well, I didn't say it does, I said it's likely.
It's built into their budget. Thing. So for the new language, people are comfortable with it?
Yeah.
Just trying to think, do people feel that 559 is in good shape at this point?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're changing that date, right? Other than that, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
November
Yeah.
15th.
So let's reach out to parole board, Lori Fisher from DOC, and Todd from Attorney General's office. Anything you folks want to weigh in on this latest draft? And Jane?
one thing on, I know it brought up before about whether on page 4, section, lines 11 through 14, you know, that was talked about whether it should be in there or not. It sounded like the committee wants to leave it in there. I would just recommend on line 13, replacing Department of Corrections with Agency of Human Services, as I believe the Agency of Human Services will be the contract holder for us, not the Department of Corrections.
But
Is that true?
yeah, that's.
The record, Ted Fisher, Vermont Agency of Human Services. I'm the Principal Assistant Communications Director. I'm filling in for Brendan Atwood, who is somewhere warm and lovely this week. I am not Brendan, so my expertise on this is not great, but yes, the parole board is housed under central office. The intent of that is for it to be independent of the Department of Corrections, and I recognize there's some funniness with the DOC budget there, but in this case, yes, we would be the contract holder, so we absolutely ditto Mary Jane. I think there may or may not, I leave this to council and the committee, you, Madam Chair. There may or may not be other places where it could be AHS rather than DOC.
But the money is in DOC's budget. That's the issue. The money is in DOC's budget. Yeah,
But it's under AHS, right?
DOC's under
Yeah.
Agency of Human Services, but the parole board is not directly under the secretary.
And this is where, me not being either a financial person or I was at one point a policy director for another agency, but I'm not a policy director for AHS, is just, I apologize, I'm a poor replacement for Brendan today. But I will do my best to find that out, but you're absolutely right, Representative Greer. It is DOC's budget, but DOC's budget is part of the agency's budget. So it may be that that's the place where we would like it to remain, but the contract itself would be reasonably, we would be the ones. We would be the ones supporting the parole board in doing that contract.
So regardless of what you do anywhere else, this line, in your opinion, should be changed to HS.
Yes, and I would just say there might be other places as well, but I can also go back and try and get a stronger answer when it comes to budgeting as well.
I'm remembering correctly. Didn't the chair of the parole board want a more direct line to the Secretary of the Agency of Human Services? And we decided not to do that. Right? I mean, are people remembering Dean George's
Election,
testimony? I'm hearing silence.
People say they remember.
We decided not to do that. Because the money is in DOC's budget. Which is under the Commissioner of Corrections for that budget, and yes, it's under the Agency of Human Services. But the request, the money gets allocated to the parole board out of DOC's budget.
But again, there's a fine line, and so I think obviously, like you said, we would find out, because there could be a line, a fine line between.
I don't remember all of the details, but I do know when we went out for bid with the RFP, it was under the Agency of Human Services, even though the money was in our line items in the Department of Corrections. Worked with the Human Services folks to put the contract out. The language was with the Agency of Human Services. So I'm not sure, I'm not a finance person either, so I don't know all the details of the finances, but that's how it was drafted the first time around. Because that's our place of being in the DOC budget, but also an independent entity housed within the Agency of Human Services. and Chairman George did speak about putting more, the training piece that was under way at the beginning of the bill. Section line 13 through 17 on page 1, that's where he was referencing the Agency of Human Services changing that section, but there's other pieces in that section that the Commissioner of Corrections really falls under Commissioner's purview, not the Secretary's purview.
Section 1 of the bill is under powers and responsibilities of the Commissioner of DOC, not the Secretary of the Agency of Human Services. And that's what the chair of the board was recommending, would shift over to the Secretary of the Agency of Human Services. And we decided to keep it within DOC because that's where your money's coming from. And you do get administrative support at times from DOC. So is there anything else at all on the bill or the new language, Mary Jane?
Don't have anything else in specific. I will say that I ran through the previous version of the bill, and we had our government board staff meeting yesterday. I ran through the previous version of the bill, let them know what had been discussed, what the changes were most likely looking like, and they were very supportive and thankful to all of you for your work on this and your recognition of the board.
Lori Fisher from DOC, do you want to weigh in at all on the current draft on 559?
Thank you, Chair. For the record, Lori Fisher, General Counsel, Department of Corrections. I just want to, and I apologize, I'm adding to the not a financial person in front of you today. We don't have those brains here, and I apologize for that as well. But I would just like to support the suggestion that the Department of Corrections, I think if I can add a little context, I think the goal is to get the parole board their independence that statutorily they're supposed to have. But excluding the financial piece and all the budget stuff that we can't speak to because we would mess it up, I think in relation to getting DOC out of the conversations, it would be the agency, which is where the parole board is technically housed for purposes of our internal structure. So the guidance that I'm getting from AH Legal is consistent with what you've heard from Director Ainsworth and Mr. Fisher today, not related. And I just wanted to support that change, that the department kind of be removed from those sections and the Agency of Human Services be reinserted instead.
So I'm a little confused. The only place that we changed DOC to the Agency of Human Services was in going out for the RFP for the legal. And that's the only place where we've changed anything.
I appreciate that. And just to make sure that I'm clear, is that where we were talking about, let's see, page 4, line 12?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that was pertaining to the legal counsel pilot project.
Okay.
Then it would be the board, the office of the AG would coordinate with the board, parole board, and the Agency of Human Services to identify and contract with external legal support. So we took out Department of Corrections and put in Agency of Human Services. That's the only place where we made that change.
Okay, I appreciate that clarification. The only other, we are certainly partners in this and happy to collaborate as the parole board needs. But on the development of the budget process, I'm just wondering if to align that previous change you just clarified for me, that maybe on page 4, line 16, that the department would come out of that and the process would be between the Agency of Human Services and the parole board in the manner that Mr. Atwood previously explained.
So I'm a little confused. The only place that we changed DOC to the Agency of Human Services was in going out for the RFP for the legal. And that's the only place where we've changed anything. But what happened on that one was, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the thinking was that the parole board would submit their budget needs to Department of Corrections Commissioner, because the Department of Corrections, that's where the money for the parole board is. And then the Department of Corrections submits their budget to the Agency of Human Services Secretary.
Fair enough, fair enough. I don't,
So
again,
we
I don't
want to
want to,
keep that, we want to keep that same process in place. Because this is talking about the budget process for FY 28, that it would include resources needed for the legal support for the board. So the board would present their budget to the Commissioner of DOC. Because the money for the board is coming from DOC's budget.
understood. I appreciate that. I think the only other place that the department was mentioned was the collaboration on the report on the pilot project, and certainly willing to support and assist in that process.
Yeah. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Todd, anything from the Attorney General's office?
I would just reiterate that section 4, subsection B, just page 4 lines 12 to 14. Yes.
Okay.
We feel redundant to the existing administrative law.
So if this looks good to folks, which I'm picking up it is.
Yeah.
With a change of Agency of Human Services and a change on lines 9 and 10, so it's not so limited in terms of the training, and then the date change, and then we'll get new language in terms of session law for the budgeting process in general for the parole board. We'll get that Thursday. And then we'll deal with the money aspect. It's 25,000, 50,000, or 75,000. People are leaning towards 75,000. So that means we have to find 50,000. I'm not going to appropriations without finding it. We will find it.
So one note on the next draft. It sounds like you are not ready to include appropriations language yet, but that appropriations language would need to be added in the event that $50,000 is spent. Passive tense.
Maybe we'll have a brainstorming session with the committee and we might be able to find it prior to Thursday. I don't know.
We can do it.
Yeah, we can do it.
To draft an appropriation section, I just need to know how much, where it's coming from, and where it's to.
It's pocketbook.
Anything else before we finish on this one? I have to get this puppy out this week, really would,
It'd be so nice.
because it does have to go to appropriations committee. Anything else? Thank you all. Thank you, folks,
Thank
for
you.
that. Thank you. We've put in a lot of work in this one, and Ted, good luck.
Thank you.
And you weren't a terrible replacement.
That's me.
Thank you.
Well, I'm doing 2 jobs this
Thank you.
Enabling other people's vacation
Right.
is really the highest calling of a colleague. So.
School vacation time.
I see a halo over you.
That's just the refresh. Anything else in the committee before we finish up on YouTube? And then we're back here. At 30.
We are.
Want to look at the schedule here.
The weather's supposed to be decent.
Yes.
It's-
5:50.
No, it's supposed to be good.
Oh, it's every dollar.
It's been so deplorable most of the session so far.
I'll take mine back.
Right.
Right in front of me. Yeah.
Thank you as always. And it's
So tomorrow, we're back here at 8:30, and we're gonna be talking about gender equity, and then we go into telecommunications. Those are the 2 bills that we've been trying to work on, and then we get back to pretrial supervision in the afternoon. because we gotta really bite the bullet on that and figure out what we're doing. Okay. So let's go off of YouTube and we'll see everyone tomorrow.